Hi, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to make a beautiful lace cardigan that's perfect for summer. It's a V-stitch pattern, it's worked from the top down, and it's completely seamless. I'm using comfy fingering weight yarn from WeCrochet in the color Ivory. I'll be using 2 crochet hooks for this pattern, a 4.5 and a 3.5 millimeter. These are Dots crochet hooks from WeCrochet. You get the full set with your purchase, and the yarn is also from WeCrochet. So I'll have those links in the description box. You'll also need a stitch marker, a tapestry needle, scissors, and a measuring tape. This video is not intended to teach you how to crochet. It is just a tutorial to show you the steps to work through this particular crochet pattern. If the video is too fast, there is a slow down option in your YouTube settings. So if you click below the video on the gear icon, you can choose the required speed. This crochet pattern includes sizes from extra small to 5X. If you check the description box below this video, you will find the link that will take you to the blog post, as well as the links to purchase the pattern on either Ravelry or Etsy. So we're going to be starting at the neck and working our way down. So I have pulled from the center of the ball. I just find it works a little bit easier to do that. Once you get going, you sometimes need to pull out a big section, but once you work through that, then you don't have to worry about the ball rolling all over the place as you work. So now I have tried this both ways with the larger hook and the smaller hook, and I think the smaller hook is the better way to go to start this out. You just want to make sure that you don't do it too tight when you're using the smaller hook. So what we're going to do is start with a chain of 94, and this will be the same for all sizes. So chain out 94 and just make sure that those chains aren't too tight, or you're going to really struggle to work back into them. And try to get those chains all nice and even. So once you have your chain, we're going to work single crochets along it. But rather than working into the back loop of the chain, we're going to turn the chain and work into these back bumps that you see here. Okay, so that's going to give it a nice clean edge. Now, if you prefer to work foundation single crochets to start this off, you could do that as well. That is a little bit more challenging for beginners, so I typically would rather show you the easier way to do it than the more difficult. But if you are familiar with foundation single crochets and you prefer that, you can go ahead and do 93. So what I'm going to do is now in the second chain from the hook, so 1, 2, see this back bump right here, we're going to work a single crochet. And you're going to work them, and because I didn't do that chain too tight, I'm able to work into those nice and easy. If it's a struggle, you've probably done your chain too tight. And then you can see we're going to have that nice stitch across this side, which will be easy to work into when we're doing our edging or if you're adding a hood. Now, I also like to mention that if for some reason that you are struggling with these back bumps, you can always just go ahead and work in the back loop of the chain. It's not going to be the end of the world if you do that. I definitely don't want you struggling and giving up. So whatever works. Okay, so I'm going to continue working along my chain so that I have 93 single crochets. Okay, so once you have this complete, this is probably the most tedious part, getting that worked up. The rest of the pattern will work up really quick. Don't be intimidated by the fact that this is fingering weight yarn. You will be so surprised as to how quickly this pattern is going to work up. Now I'm going to start off my first row still using the smaller hook, and then we'll swap out for the larger one as we get going. So this row is fairly straightforward. We're going to be working V-stitches across. It's going to get us set up for our yoke. So we're going to begin with a chain 3. I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to work a double crochet in that first stitch. So this is going to count as our first V-stitch. Now I'm going to skip 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to work a V-stitch in the next, but I'm going to chain 1 first. So 1, 2, 3, and in the next stitch, I'm going to do a V-stitch, which is a double crochet. Chain 1 and a double crochet in the same stitch. Okay, so that's how to do a V-stitch, and when I refer to V-stitch throughout the pattern, this is what you're going to be doing. So V-stitch, chain 1. Now I'm going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and a V-stitch in the next. Now right now I'm working on my wrong side. This is the right side. If this is helpful for you, you can always add a stitch marker to mark the right side of your work. I'll do that as I move forward a little bit farther. And now also you can mark your sections as you go. You can wait till the next round or row, whatever you think. I'm gonna grab some more stitch markers because I'm gonna mark the sections as we go, just so that you can mark yours if you find that helpful. So our front section is really small because we're going to be increasing the front. So only this first V-stitch and those 3 stitches are the front. So we're going to mark this V-stitch, so the second one, because this is going to separate these sections. So front, and then we're working on our sleeve section next. I'm going to chain 1, 1, 2, 3, working a V-stitch, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and you could just whip across this in this pattern if you want to worry about the sections on the next row. 2, 3. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just do my V's, V-stitch, chain 1, skip 3. I'm going to work it across, and then I'm going to come back and we'll mark out the sections. Okay, so I'm coming up to the end, and if you have the right number of stitches, the 93 that we started with, you should be ending with 4 and doing a V in the last stitch. If you don't have, if you're not ending correctly, then double check your stitches going across and make sure that you did start with the 93. So V-stitch in the end. So let's count our V-stitches to make sure you're on track. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 V-stitches. Now we're going to separate our sections, because when you're working a top down, you have your fronts, your sleeves, and your back. So I'm going to count now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and mark the next V-stitch. So this marks off my sleeve. Now I'm going to count 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to mark the next V-stitch, and this marks my back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. and my next V-stitch is marked. Okay, so we have 1 and 1 for our fronts, 5 and 5 for our sleeves, and 8 for our back. Now, what's handy with marking these is it is going to keep you on track for where we will do the increase. So when we're increasing, we're doing a V in the V-stitch instead of the chain 1 spaces. But I'm going to go ahead and change over to the larger hook now to start on the next row. So I'm going to chain 3, going to turn. We are now to the right side of our work, and if you want to mark the right side, you can tell by this edge looking a lot nicer, but if you really feel like you need to mark that as you work throughout this pattern, you can just put a stitch marker that it is marked to, maybe I'll do this row to the right side. And then that's just going to help you as you work through the pattern. So now when we're increasing our front panel, we're going to do a V in the V. So I'm going to increase here. So I'm going to do my double crochet in that V stitch. Okay, so this is a V stitch and it's worked into this V stitch for our front panel increase. Now I'll chain 1. I'm going to work a V stitch in the chain 1 space. Chain 1, and now I've come to my mark stitch, which is where we put a V in the V for our increase of the yoke. So we're going to do a V in the V, chain 1. Now you can continue moving the stitch marker if you need that as a visual, because we're doing so many V stitches. Now I can usually pick out as I work along that this V is in this V and that's where I need to do it. But if you're a beginner or you really don't want to mess up, then just keep moving your marker as you go, just to make sure for your next row that you are working the V in the V and not skipping over that and just working into the chain 1. So now what we'll do is work a V stitch chain 1 across to the next marker. Okay, so you're always doing a V chain 1, and then we're working them now in the chain 1 spaces. So you can see how quickly this really does work up. We're working double crochets and chain 1s. Really easy to pick out our chain 1 spaces. So even though this is a fingering weight yarn, you're going to work through this pattern very quickly and you're going to get a nice lightweight top, which is perfect for summer and spring. Like you don't want something that's too heavy and too warm. So using fingering weight yarn is a really good option for your summer crochet projects. And this is a cotton blend. So it's really great for the warm weather. Let's just take a look at it here. So it's Pima cotton and it only has 25% acrylic and it's super soft. So it's not only giving you the nice breathability of cotton, but it's also super soft. It's nothing like your cotton that you get, you know, to make dishcloths and such. Like it's not stiff and scratchy like that. This is nice and soft. So now once you get to your next V, we can remove that marker to make it a little bit easier. We're going to work a V in the V stitch, chain 1, and I'm going to mark this stitch again. And then you're going to do your chain 1, working your V's, chain 1 in the chain 1 spaces across to the next marker. Okay, so I'm coming up to my next marker. I'm just going to remove it, work a V in the V stitch, and then I am going to add my marker back again. And I'm going to continue working across. Okay, so we're coming up to our last marker. V-stitch in the V-stitch, chain 1. Place my marker back. And now I'll be doing a V in the chain 1. And then we're going to be adding a V-stitch in the V-stitch to increase. And then we can turn. So now I don't want a drastic increase on this collar area. Okay, so this front panel, if I kept doing V's in V's as I went, it would increase rather drastically, which I don't want to do, because if we take a look at this, each section is going to go up by 1 V-stitch only. So if I look at the first row here, we had 5. Then if we count the next, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And included in the PDF, I have done up a chart that shows each section for each row, just so you can track it to make sure that you're on track with this. Now, if you look at the back, we had 8. So now we have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the back is going up 1 V-stitch every row. But if we increased our fronts 1 each side every row, this is going to increase much quicker than our back, which we don't want to do. We don't want it increasing that drastically. You could, if you wanted to then stop increasing, like increase it drastically and then stop so that it doesn't continue to go much bigger than our back panel. But if you want to just follow along with the pattern how I've designed it, it makes things simple for you. So this row, we're not going to do an increase. So what we're going to do is chain 3, and then we're going to skip over the V-stitch. So instead of putting a V in the V, we're skipping over the V and we're going into the first chain 1 space. I'm going to put a V, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, another V in the next chain 1 space, chain 1. And so now this row, this one had 2 V's, this one's going to have 2 V's and that chain that would count as a double crochet. Then we get to the marker, and always in the marked stitch, we're doing a V and a V to increase our yoke. Okay, so this is where the increase happens to get this yoke getting bigger as we go. So V, chain 1, put our marker back in. So if you recall me saying all of them start the same, is because going around the neck, we want the same for all sizes, because even though we may get, we're all different sizes, our necks are very similar, and we're not going to have a really big neck that's going to be too oversized for a plus size. So what will happen is you'll keep increasing your yoke to get to the size that you want. So you stop when you get to, let's say, an extra small, you stop. When you get to a small, you stop, increasing, and so forth. So the bigger size you're making, the more rows you're going to do to get it large enough to fit around your body. So what I'm going to do at this point now is I'm going to work across V-stitch chain 1 in the chain 1 spaces, and I will be putting my V in my V-stitch at every marker. So I'm going to work that across. Okay, so I've now worked all the way across. I have my 2 V's for my front. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'll just be working a double crochet into the last V-stitch. Okay, so this makes this side equal this side. We started with a chain on this side, so our 2 chains are double crochet, and then the 3rd chain counts as the chain 1. So this row did not increase those front panels. We still increased our sections, but we didn't increase this front panel to be 3. We want to keep it at 2 V's rather than 3 V's. But now the next row we're going to increase. So chain 3, and now we're going to put a V-stitch in the chain 1 space. Okay, so it's now starting with a V, chain 1, V-stitch in the chain 1 space, chain 1, V-stitch in the chain 1 space, chain 1. So now when you look at the front, okay, so now instead of 2, we've gone up to 3. 1, 2, 3 V-stitches. And then we'll continue over across the pattern again, just working our V's in our marked V-stitches. So this part is quick and repetitive. So I'm going to work that across again, and then I'll meet you up to show you the end section. Okay, so I'm coming to the end. I've worked a V, chain 1, and now in our turning chain here, we're going to work another V-stitch. Okay, so now you can see, looking here, this is our row that does not have a V. So this is the non-increase one. This one we've increased, and now we're going to increase again. And this is the pattern we're going to do. We're going to have 1 row where we're not increasing, then we're going to have 2 rows that we increase. So chain 3, turn, work a V in the V, chain 1, we're going to work a V-stitch, chain 1, the next chain 1 space, work them across, V-stitch, chain 1 in the chain 1 spaces, over to the marked stitch, chain 1. So you can see now we have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to work a V in the V. Okay, so continue working this all the way across, and I'll meet you up at the end again. Okay, so I'm coming up to the end. I'm going to V-stitch, chain 1 in the last chain 1 space, and now I'm going to do a V in my V-stitch to increase. Okay, so now if you look, you can see this one, we didn't do the increase. We now have 2 increases, and now we're going to do another non-increase. So we're going to chain 3, turn, and then we're skipping over the V-stitch. So when we increase, we're putting the double crochet in the V, but when we're not, we're skipping over it and just working our V into the chain 1 space. Chain 1, and then working across as usual, chain 1, chain 1, and then we are going to do our yoke increase here in the V-stitch. Okay, so let's just take a look because this is the most complicated part. The rest is so simple, but when we're doing these increases, so this one had 1, 2, 3, 4 V-stitches. This one now has 1, 2, 3, 4 and a double crochet. And then the next 2 rows, you'll increase again, and then you'll do another row that isn't increasing. So this is how the pattern's gonna work. This is why it's a good idea to follow along with the written pattern, follow the repeats for the size you're working on. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm on my 6th row. So now what I'm going to do is meet you up for row 15. It's worked a little bit different because we're stopping the extra small size, but we're going to continue making a bigger size for this tutorial. So it will continue increasing with the pattern, but the extra small has to be worked a little bit different. It will have a little bit shorter V-neck than, or V kind of coming in as the other sizes. So that one's the only one that's different. The rest of the sizes will work the same neck amount. So what we're basically doing is we're wanting to get our fronts equaling the back. So for the extra small, we're going to have 22 V-stitches at the back, and then we want 11 for each front. For the remaining sizes, we want 24 at the back, and we want 12 at each of the fronts. And then after that point, we won't be increasing the neck amount anymore. So you'll still need to increase for a larger size, but not the part of the neck that goes into the V. So I just want to remind you at the end, we're going to just do a double. So I'll work that across and finish that off for you because then you're going to be doing repeats. Okay, I've worked all the way across. I'm coming to my last V-stitch and I'm just going to work, I've already chained 1, I'm going to work a double crochet. Okay, so now I'm just going to be working repeats of the last 2 rows. So we're going to do 2 more increases and then we'll do a non-increase, etc. But I'm going to work up a total of 14 rows and then I'll meet you up to show you 15. This row 15 will only be for the extra small size. If you're working on any of the other sizes, you can work away following the repeat up to row 17. Okay, so I've worked up to row 14. Now what you want to do, instead of going to our non-increase row, we're going to do another increase. So we'll chain 3 and work a V-stitch, chain 1. So this is just if you are working the extra small. So if you're working on the other sizes, we're going to skip this. I just want to show you this section if you're working on the smaller sizes, because this is where it alters from that increase pattern, because we need to get our front panels equaling the back. So I'm just going to work my way across to our V. Okay, so now rather than having only 10, we're going to have 11 stitches until we get to, I don't have this marked here, but this would be marked. So you would do your increase here and then continue. So your back is going to have 22, and this is row 15 we're working on, and then you end with the same. So that's how you work the extra small, but I'm going to pull it back because I'm going to continue working the pattern as normal for the rest of the sizes. Okay, so the rest of the sizes you continue as normal. This is a non-increase row. Okay, so I've been working away on my cardigan and I have a total of 18 rows. So you can count your V-stitches along the side. I find that's the easiest way to do your counting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And you can see I'm finishing with the double crochet in the V. So we won't be doing any more increases because at this point, your front panels are going to be equaling the back. You can still keep increasing for the size you're working on, but we won't be doing any more increases to this side, bringing the cardigan into the center. So if you take a look how it looks here, sort of done a gradual increase to the center, but we won't be doing any more. The increases now will just happen at this side of the panel. So at round 17 is where they equal out. So we had 12 V-stitches on each side and 24 at the back. Now at row 18, we have 25 and still only 12 on each side here, but then the next round, these will go up to 13 and 13, and then the back will be 26. So you can continue increasing this now, however you need to get it to the size you want. So you can try this on as you go. You can see if this is a good amount for your arm at this point, or if you need to continue working additional rows to get it the size that you want. Okay, so now the next row, what we're going to do is chain 3, turn my work, and I'm going to begin working across the front panel. Working V stitches, chain 1 in the chain 1 spaces. I'm going to work right across to the V corner V-stitch, which is where we do the increasing. So now if you're continuing to increase, just work as normal, do your increase in the V-stitch at the corner here. But if you are finished increasing, or when you get to finish increasing, this is what you're going to do. You're going to skip over this next section, which is our sleeve. So you're going to find the next V in the V-stitch, which is here. If you have it still marked, I took my markers out, but if you still have it marked, then just go to your marked stitch. You're going to skip it, and we're going to work right into the next chain 1 space. So chain 1 as normal and work a V, chain 1, and now you're going to work across the back panel. So just continue with your V-stitch chain 1 in each chain 1 space until you get to the next V in the V-stitch. So we had 13 V's for our front panel. We did our little skip over our sleeve section. I now have 26 V's across the back. I've come to the next V in the V-stitch. I've chained 1 and I'm skipping this sleeve, finding the next V in the V, which is here, and going right into the next chain 1 space. working the V, chain 1, and go across this panel as well for a total of 13 V's. Okay, so we're ending with a V in the turning chain. So now you want to continue alternating between your ending with that V and starting then with a chain 4. If you started with a V again, it would increase. So you want to do the chain 4, skipping over into the next chain 1 space. So now I want to go over some modifications you can make to the pattern. So one question I get sometimes is that for women that have a larger bust but a smaller arm, they don't necessarily want to continue increasing to make this armhole really big. So if this is a good size for your arm, but you know it's not going to be big enough for your bust, you could still continue to increase your front and your back panels to fit over your bust. And all you need to do that is just add 2 V-stitches in a chain 1 space and just space them out however you want. So you could come, let's say here, and you could add an extra V-stitch. You could add an extra V-stitch on the other side, and you could do that over here as well. And you could continue adding increases until you find it's the right size. Now, another question I get sometimes is that you're maybe a pear shape and you're smaller up top. So you want the smaller size here, but then you want to increase for your hips. So you may not want to start increasing right away. You may want to carry this down to, let's say, your waist and then start increasing for your hips. So you can continue to add increases, and it's so easy to do it just by adding 2 V's in a chain 1 space rather than just 1 V stitch. And I would just evenly space them. I wouldn't place them in here because we don't want to change the line of this, but I would space them sort of into where we would normally do increases, like in this area, possibly in the back or over here, and just evenly disperse those increases. And all you need to do is to really determine how many increases to do. You can do your measurement with your gauge to see how many V stitches you have per inch or per 4 inches, and see how many V's that you need in total to fit around your hips with whatever ease you desire, or your bust with whatever ease you desire. So you may determine that you need, I'm just going to say off the top of my head, let's say you need 100 V stitches, then just make sure wherever you're at that you keep increasing until you get to that point. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I am just going to continue as if this is all good. I've increased enough for my bust and my hips. This one I'm actually not going to do as long, but we're going to have 2 versions in the pattern. So a shorter cardigan as well as a longer cardigan. So this is a good size for me to go to my waist. So now when you get to the underarm, chain 1 space, you're just going to add a V and continue working as normal across. Okay, and you will be ending with a double crochet in that last V. You're not adding a V in the V at the end. Okay, so I've worked all the way across 51 V stitches, and we're ending with a double crochet in the V, chain 3, turn, and then we start with a V stitch. So this row will have 52 V stitches, and you'll work across. And now once you've worked at least one row like this, you can try it on to make sure that the fit is good, because it's easy to pull it back at this point. You haven't done a lot of work if you need to make it a little bit bigger. Or if you find it's too big and you need to pull it back and make a smaller size, it's easy to do at this point. Okay, so I've worked across, ending with a V in the turning chain, and we're back to a chain 4 row. So just keep alternating between these rows so you're not changing your stitch count unless you plan on increasing. Then you'll still continue with rows beginning and ending this way, but add in the increases if you are adding any. Okay, so for the crop length cardigan, I've worked 19 rows. Now you can continue making it as long as you want, but for this one, I'm gonna keep it short, and I'm gonna change over to my 4mm crochet hook. I'm gonna chain 1. So to keep things simple, we're going to do 3 single crochets per V-stitch, and we're going to skip the chain 1s. So 3, skip the chain 1, and do 3 for the next V-stitch. Skip, and you're just going to work this all the way across, doing 3 single crochet stitches for every V-stitch. Okay, so I'm coming across, finishing with my last V-stitch, and I'm going to chain 1 and turn. So now you can really just do as many rows as you want. I would just suggest finishing on your right side, so on an odd number row. So either just do the 1 to finish the edge, or do 3, or do 5, or do 7, as thick as you would like. This is another way to add some additional length to the cardigan as well. But I think I'm just going to go with 3 for this one, but follow along with the pattern and the finished directions. Or customize it to how you would prefer it to look. So all you're doing now is just single crocheting through each stitch. Okay, so I'm finishing off the bottom band. So if you've chosen just to go with that single crochet bottom, this is what it should look like. And now I'm going to chain 1 and continue working the edging across the panels and the back. So we're going to single crochet, so we want to get 3 for the 3 rows we did here, and now 2, and I'm using my smaller hook, 2 single crochet per row. So these rows are the height of a double crochet, so we want to add 2 in every row. And I also want to go ahead and do 3 rows for the edging. Now, if you're doing a join as you go band, so if you've wanted to do the pattern like the white cardigan, let me just grab it. All the instructions are in the PDF, and a lot of my patterns I do this way. So if you have gone with the ribbing along the bottom, you still need to work around your edge in the single crochet stitches. We'll only be doing one row, and then we'll be doing the join as you go ribbed band. I wanted to give you a little bit different look just to show how you can easily customize a pattern to your preference. I know some people don't like doing all of that ribbing. So you can really go with a single crochet band, and you can do it as thick or thin really as you want. It's nice and simple. So you're going to work all the way up the side, so 2 single crochet per row, and then when you get to the foundation row, you're just doing 1 single crochet per row. So work all the way around. So once you get all the way over, chain 1 and turn. I'm not liking how that edge looks, so I am just going to slip stitch where that starts and chain 1 and do it that way. And then what you're going to do is just work this row back, chain 1 and turn, and work back 1 more row of single crochet. And then you can fasten that off. So I'm going to chain out 15. So single crochet in the second chain from the hook and in each chain across. And it's always a good idea to count just so you stay on track. So I'm going to have 14 stitches. Okay, so now I'm going to skip over our first stitch and I'm going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. Then you'll turn. Going to work in the back loops only. We're going to skip those first 2 slip stitches and then single crochet in the back loop only in those 14 stitches. So there's 14, chain 1 and turn, and then we'll work back down. And then what you'll do is slip stitch in your next 2 stitches along the base again, turn, and we're just going to keep joining the band to the base of the top as we work along. So you'll have the same number of rows per stitches along the base of the top. Okay, so to work on the sleeve, here's my right side. And when I was working on the sleeve here, I ended on my right side. So when I join in, I want to go to the wrong side of my work just so I can keep my stitches consistent. So now what we need to do first off is join our corner V-stitches together. We skipped over them when we continued working the body. So you either will have them still marked or you can easily find them. You want the V-stitch within the V-stitch. Okay, and then we're going to come over and slip stitch into our other one. And use this tail after you can sew this gapping closed. I'm going to slip stitch over to the chain 1 space, chain 3, double crochet to create our V, chain 1, and we'll do a V stitch, chain 1 in each chain 1 space around. So now our sleeve can be made as long as we want. I'm going to refer you to our V-Stitch V-neck pullover because we have some different modifications for sleeves over in that video. So you could do a long sleeve with a cuff, you could do a short sleeve with a little cuff. It gives you some options. And for this particular cardigan, I'm going to do a 3/4 length and I'm not going to do any decreasing. So if you want to do decreases, you can follow along with the written pattern or go check out that video and I'll have it linked. Or go check out that video and I'll have it linked for you because I show how to decrease the sleeve in that tutorial. It's really simple to do. Instead of putting a full V-stitch, you're just going double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet in the next chain 1 space to do a decrease. But for this sleeve, I'm going to keep it without doing any decreases. So I'm going to continue that around. Okay, so I'm coming to my last chain 1 space. Chain 1, V-stitch and chain 1. And then what we'll do is slip stitch into our first V to join, chain 3, turn. So now we're back to the right side and double crochet to make our first V, chain 1, V-stitch, chain 1 in every chain 1 space around. Okay, so now you're just going to continue doing this. So when you come around, you're slip stitching in the V, turning and continuing until you get the sleeve the length you want. Do decreases if you want to add decreases. And then you can try it on as you go, really to get the length that you want for the sleeve. Okay, so I've worked a total of 26 rows. It's always a good idea to mark your first row when you're doing the sleeve. It's just easier to keep track. And once you get all the way around, we're going to slip stitch, chain 1, and we're going to single crochet 3 for a V-stitch and 1 in the chain 1 space. Now, if you're pulling in your sleeve for a cuff, you're going to want to reduce it much more than that. Follow along with your pattern if you choose that option, or watch my V-neck top tutorial that I'll have linked. But because I don't want to pull this cuff in, I want to keep it nice and loose, I am just going to work 1 single crochet for every stitch. So 3 for the V with my smaller hook and 1 for the chain 1 space. So with the 3.5, work that all the way around. And I'm going to go with 3 rounds to be consistent with all of my other edging. So when you get all the way around, just slip stitch to join, chain 1, and continue working so that you have 3 rounds in total. Okay, so one other thing that I've added to this version of the cardigan is some ties. You could just do 2 ties like I've shown in some of the pictures, but I'm also going to add some a little bit higher just so that it holds it in a little bit more, and you can play around. I like to try it on and sort of see where I want to tie it. Like you could just have a tie up higher. This comes across the bust, this tie. So I'm going to show you how I add the I-cord tie. So I've done one here, and I'm going to leave, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So maybe I'll do 10 stitches in between. So my tail is about 120 inches, and then my working yarn, so my working yarn is going to the top. My tail is going to the bottom. We're going to pull through. And now to make the cord, we're going to yarn over the hook with our tail. So you have 2 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over with your working yarn, pulling through. Yarn over the hook with your tail, yarn over with your working yarn, pulling through the 2 loops on your hook. And this makes a really nice, simple little I-cord. Now for my ties, I did 120 stitches. And you can see how you sort of get that nice. It gives you a little bit more substance to your tie than just doing a chain. And then if you were to do a chain, then you have to work back through it. So it's sort of tedious. This just makes it so much easier. So I'm going to count off 120. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So I'll count up 10 stitches and then do another tie. Okay, so I do have lots left over. So I think you could get away with doing 80 to 100 inches when you pull off for your tie. So what I'm gonna do now is cut both of my tails. You can pull that through. You could add some beads if you wanted, but I am just going to knot the bottom. And then trim. Okay, so I have 2. You can add as many of these really as you want for the look that you're going for. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. So once you finish your ties, you can just tie them when you're wearing the cardigan, really however you want. Tie them in bows. I think this is just a nice little added detail to the simple edged cardigan. And if you opted to do the ribbed edging, you can do it like this. You could always add buttonholes if you prefer to add buttons. Lots of different options. And this is how I finished off the sleeve for the longer version. And I will have the link to our top video if you prefer to follow this sleeve. Now I also want to mention you can block your cardigan when you're finished. I have already been wearing my white cardigan and I did wash it, and I wanted to just let you know how it comes out. So if you look at Comfy, if you use Comfy, you can machine wash in cold water. I did this on a gentle cycle, and it said you can tumble dry low. So I did test it out to see how it comes out, and I'm actually quite happy with the results. You get maybe a slight little bit of fuzzing, and this is what's going to happen when you put items in the dryer. You could fluff it a little bit and then lay it out to dry to finish it off. I did find that it did shrink it in a little bit, but mine had stretched out when I was wearing it, so I'm actually happy that it cinched it in a little bit. But if you want to keep that stretch, I suggest you lay it out. I find this yarn is pretty stretchy, so when I pulled it out of the wash, it did seem like it was going to stretch out a lot, and that's why I felt comfortable putting it into the dryer to kind of fluff it up a little bit, and I ended up just letting it do the entire dry cycle, and definitely fits a little bit smaller, but it still fits because it was a little oversized on me. But again, if you want it still stretched out, just lay it out to dry and stretch it out to shape. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, Please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. Make sure to check the description box below the video for all the links, and I hope you enjoy making this cardigan and adding your own fun little unique elements, mixing and matching to get that perfect cardigan. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.